Hey, it's Melissa from Kiwi Banana, and today I want to talk about some medicinal herbs. I'm going to choose 5, and I consider them to be common among, I guess, say some states. This is all definitely going to depend on where you live and what you have access to. I guess a lot of you, if you're watching this, you probably have access to the internet. However, it's always going to be better if you can access these things locally and if they are grown locally. So before I get started, I just want to mention that I am not a medical professional and that you should always sort of check your medication if you're on any, and if you are someone who has to visit a doctor very regularly because you are in a dis-ease, should I say, then you might want to check with them as to whether you can actually incorporate these. Now, all these herbs I'm about to talk about, you don't want to be having excess of anything, especially on a daily basis. All things that you consume can have somewhat of a side effect, so you do want to be wary of that. So the first one I talk about is very common, and I'm sure most people around the world have heard of it. In the English name, I guess we refer it to as ginger. Now, you can obviously access this in powder form. You could get it in like a tea, or you could get it in the root vegetable itself. I mean, if you can access it organic and locally, that is absolutely wonderful, and without packaging, then tick, 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 tick. Although I also understand that it's not always attainable to access it like that. Now, ginger is related to other herbs, herb-like plants, such as turmeric and cardamom. It also makes sense as to why sometimes you'll find in particular cuisines around the world that they tend to actually incorporate a lot of all of those things because they're able to access all 3 of those plants. So ginger can be really good. I guess the number one thing most people think about with ginger is nausea. So it can be really good for helping with that. It does have anti-inflammatory properties. It could be good for things like for relieving some flu symptoms and the common cold. It can be good for digestion, pain relief, menstruation, and vertigo actually. So those are just some aspects of ginger that they can be good for. Generally all of these herbs are going to have other really good sort of vitamins and minerals in them anyway. So if you just want to incorporate them a little bit here and there, every other day, if you want to, in a bit of your food or have some tea with some of these herbs, that can be great too for preventing some of these things from happening as well. Now, the second one I want to talk about is one that I always seem to struggle to be able to pronounce, and I say it as like Echinacea, but I will write out the 5 herbs in the description box down below, so you'll be able to check to make sure to see what it is that I'm actually pronouncing. Now, if you want to plant this one, the butterflies and the bees absolutely love this plant. Obviously, it's going to depend on what kind of variety of butterflies and bees there actually are and where you live, but quite often they really, really like this plant. So if you want to incorporate a bit of that more in your garden, or you just want a bit more of that kind of energy and that vibe in your space, planting that nearby can be really good. Now, the things that this one can be really good for is flu-like symptoms, good for blood sugar levels, good for blood pressure. I think especially high blood pressure. It reduces anxiety, it has anti-inflammatory properties, can be good for pain, can be good for UTI infections and also yeast infections. Now, if you have too much of this one, it can cause mild stomach aches, so you do want to make sure that you're not over consuming this one, as that could be something that may occur. So the third one that I want to talk about is ginseng. Now, there are many different varieties of ginseng, and they can vary a lot in, potency and the strength of different properties. So you want to do your research as to what you're looking for. Maybe if you go into a herbalist or a shop where they have herbalists and naturopaths, they may be able to talk to you about what one might be best for you, especially if you want to use it in regards to something that you are trying to, deal with. Or maybe you just want to incorporate a bit of it into your diet because you feel like it's an overall good herb for you to have at this point in time. Now, this one can be really good for depression. It's got anti-inflammatory properties, It's really also, it's very much a stimulant. It can be, should I say. So it's a stimulant can be used for things like more energy and better memory. Now I go to a number of festivals throughout the year, small music and lifestyle festivals, and like I don't drink alcohol, and like I don't take like recreational substances, or I call them recreational substances, but I will look at different plant extracts. So I'm quite happy to take something like ginseng if I'd like to dance all night or something like that. So, I quite like using these more sort of medicinal herbs for different things. If I'm at a celebration, I feel open to using that sort of stuff, and also I'd like to experiment with some of that sort of stuff, so that if I want to get people, well, some people are very open to getting away from I guess you could say alcohol and other substances that they find can be quite toxic for them, but they're trying to attain a particular state of mind, a particular state of being. There's actually many other herbs and plants that people can use to do that, to get into those sort of things that they're wanting, to attain what it is that they want to feel, without actually having these like come downs or these kind of toxic effects that can come from them. So, bit of a side note, but I like ginseng because of that. It's also really good for things like stress and headaches. Can be good for things like flus and colds, and also lung function. Now, coming back to the stimulant aspect of it, because it can be quite a stimulant, too much of it can increase anxiety. So if you're someone who's quite prone to anxiety, it may increase it. So you obviously want to be considering that when you're taking ginseng, if you want to incorporate that it can increase anxiety due to its stimulant-like effects. Now, the next herb I want to talk about is something that I guess I would consider to be rather popular, and most people around the world would be aware of it, and obviously the English name it goes by is garlic. So garlic is the fourth one I want to talk about. Now, this herb we know has been talked about in lots of different purposes and uses for thousands and thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians have written all about it, and there's many other ancient civilizations that have used garlic. Now, garlic can come in lots of varieties, as with all these herbs can come in lots of different varieties. I assume probably many of you are probably only exposed to maybe 2 or 3 types of garlic, as I guess big supermarkets tend to not have as much of a variety of just one plant. Things like fruits and vegetables usually only get 1 or 2 varieties. Anyway, I digress. So garlic can be really good for heart disease, high cholesterol, can be good for the common cold and flus. It can be good for also extracting things like heavy metals. It can be good for toothaches, for digestion. Consuming quite a lot of it can apparently repel insects away from you. I don't know how much there is a truth in that, but I mean, it could be just good at repelling people you don't like away from you as well, if you eat enough of it. I digress again. It can be good for headaches. It's antibacterial, it's antifungal, and I did think of this really strange thing. I haven't used it myself, but I have heard of people being able to use it to extract splinters out of the skin. So cutting up a clove and sticking the raw part of the clove on the skin, wrapping it up in a bandage, and then leaving it on for a couple of hours and taking it out. Apparently that can help the splinter come out of the body. I don't know whether that's true or not, but doesn't sound like something that would do too much harm, obviously, as long as like you haven't got some gaping open wound. Now, they do say that consuming too much garlic could have some adverse effects on people who are asthmatic, so that's something that you may want to consider if you do have asthma. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say about garlic. It's very common. I mean, a lot of us use it in our cooking generally, unless you have particular religious reasons as to why you don't consume it. Yeah, so just keep consuming your garlic if you already do, and if you don't, maybe try adding a little bit more to your diet. Now, the fifth one I want to talk about, and the last one I want to talk about in this vlog, is chamomile. Now, some of you may have heard of this one before. You probably often see it in the tea section. Apparently there's about 1 million cups of chamomile tea are consumed around the world in a day, so it can be quite a popular plant to consume. But check it out, maybe in your local area you could actually grow it, and that way you are not purchasing it off somebody, because it is like, it comes out in a very beautiful flower, so even if you don't want to eat it, it can still be a really nice thing to incorporate in your garden, depending on where you are, of course. And there's a number of different properties that chamomile, I guess, boasts, or people boast about chamomile and say that it's really good for. So things like anxiety, stress, insomnia, because it can be really good for relaxation and helping people sleep, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, can be good for digestion. I've heard it can be really good for dandruff, if you've got that as well. Colds, if you have a lot of pain. Muscle spasms is another one that I've heard people talk about. It's interesting. Maybe that's part of the relaxation or relaxing properties of chamomile, that it might help with the muscle spasms. Sunburn, apparently it can be really good for sunburn. I think you more or less as a topical form, if you're able to put it on your skin. Also can be good for things like diabetes and blood pressure. So yeah, those are the 5 herbs that I want to talk about today, that I often talked about a lot in many different parts of the world, and that can be really good to incorporate. Yeah, let me know if you have some favourite herbs that you like to use often, whether that be because you suffer from something, or you've got a cold, or you just like to consume it on a regular basis. Leave that in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.